Hello and welcome to the Doublethink Dialogues podcast. So it's the Christmas season or
It
the
is
holiday
indeed.
season if you're not Christian or are
Yeah, I've
bothered
come
by that
across a
term.
few people. I've been in one group where they were building a winter tree rather than a Christmas tree. I don't know if they were religious or non-religious overtones to that, but certainly that was the aim.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm secular myself, so I'm not religious. My family's religious. My wife's religious. My daughter's not. But I don't really worry about it either way. I mean, celebrate what you want to celebrate, in my opinion. But it kind of brings us on to, an issue of mine that I'm interested in, because I like especially more as I've gotten older, the sort of family side of Christmas. I like the cozy like get-togethers with small family groups. I don't like the crazy bustling noise of big families, but I do like the cozy small family get-together stuff. And I really don't like all the trappings that go with Christmas. Don't necessarily like all the gift giving, all the lights, all the, you have to go to the Christmas parties and all this stuff. I don't like any of that. And the people who push it really hard, I'm calling them Christmas Nazis this year, which I've already encountered more this year than I have before, which is interesting. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get some thoughts perhaps on how Christmas has evolved, because obviously it started in more or less the way I've described, right? So you're talking about sort of small family get-togethers and in relation to I guess giving thanks for salvation in a way. And even then the secular version stayed sort of small and just sort of meeting with your family, a good time to be together in the cold of the winter and stuff like that. And then it evolved into this corporate nightmare, let's say. And then there's some thoughts now. I'm wondering, is it just my family? I've talked to a few other people who might feel the same way. Is it coming back? Is it re-evolving? I will use that term into something more similar to what it was originally because of everything that's happened, especially, let's say the pandemic has made people rethink their relationship with friends and family. And then we have, next day delivery on ordering from anywhere in the world all the time. And so gift giving isn't such a big deal. Have you noticed any changes in this kind of thing? Or is it just sort of my circle that maybe there's some hope for?
I'm guessing the changes I see are more sort of life cycle related changes. So in long term, I mean, a family Christmas to me was a small family at home. And that was a different economic period. So, I mean, we weren't a poor family by the standards of the time, but there were actually things you might want at Christmas time that you hadn't already got. It wasn't sort of adding more to the mountain of toys in your toy room, basically. So you could have a small Christmas that was still where gifts were meaningful, but they were not dominant. And you could have a family get together with your tree, and it was, it was pleasant and I suppose kind of spiritual. We didn't at that point take part in religious services or get-togethers outside the family so much. So that, in a sense, that was a family Christmas. I'm guessing that fast backwards, a long way from there, the village was, it was more communal, not in a commercial sense, but just in, the houses being much thinner and close together. So, I don't know whether people did huddle indoors, but I'd imagine they came out to, I don't know, dance, drink, etc., laugh with each other over Christmas, maybe more so than they would today. Now, whether they had a communal hall they went into for that, or whether they only stayed outside long enough, or whether they all crammed into one person's house. So really, yeah, the commercial side, the takeoff of that has been post me really experiencing a family Christmas. So I don't now, just for my own I don't get the close family sense of it. And I don't get the family around a log fire, because frankly, being down to a one-person family, it hardly seems worthwhile putting the heating on. So it's not a warm time. I mean, not dangerously cold, but it isn't. I was trying, there isn't room for a real fire, but would I splash out on the wood fire? I guess I would for Christmas Day if I still had that facility. But certainly the whole commercial thing, it is a peak, well, except that Black Monday has been moved a little bit earlier, but it's a sales, it's a period in the sales calendar basically.
Yeah.
That is not good for what it does to Christmas, or where it shows us overall in the year and in the economy and everything. It sort of it fits into a lot of not very good things.
Yeah, I guess so many companies are dependent on the Christmas period for their sales and things like that. I mean, for me, one of the things I've always hated, even since I was young, was Christmas shopping in the stores, because there's so many people around everywhere, and you're just like jostling, and I just never have liked that. I mean, it makes me, I don't know how to describe it, but like aggressively angry in such a circumstance, and I avoid it at all costs. Even in our town here, which is much smaller than many have been in, of course, I can't handle it here. I go down for like a Saturday, beginning of December, and decide I don't want to, go to the center of the town for the next month, basically.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, whether most, how many people feel that way, and whether they mostly react by not staying. Because you can imagine, something like our Christmas market descending into a riot if a high proportion of people that are feeling irritated by all the people around them.
Yeah.
But I can imagine, I mean, I've tried to get to one end of the Christmas market here, the other, just to be in time for something, and just thinking, well, just and I mean, I'm usually pretty sympathetic to dogs, but just the number of dog leads you could go flying over, and the number of people stood in your way eating very expensive beef burgers or hot dogs is indeed. You feel, well, why the second of, yes, barbecues outdoor sausages in hot weather, but very expensive barbecues in very cold weather.
Well, even worse. So I went the other day because I happened to be in the center, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll go for a treat. To be honest, I just come from the gym, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't have. But I was thinking, okay, I'll get like a crepe, because it's the season for crepes, chocolate crepe or something. So I went to one of the crepe stands, and I looked, and I was like, it was like $7.50 in pounds sterling for a crepe, and I just stood there flabbergasted. What is this thing made of? Like, is this the goose that laid the golden egg?
Yeah,
what are you putting in this crate that makes it worth $7.50?
Yeah, and how does this? Well, I suppose you could say that is the cost of living crisis. If you regard gold crepe or any chocolate crepe as a basic essential, then yes, there is a cost of living crisis. But people are buying it.
They are, and so it's driven by the market. But this is, again, going back to a previous episode, whereas the value of, people just don't have a sense of the value of what something is, and it's driven now. I think we've become overall a consumer society where it's like, I want this. Okay, I have enough disposable income that I won't bother worrying about the price. And that's driven somewhat by kids as well, and parents not sort of
who don't,
teaching
who don't maybe have the arithmetic skill to take much notice of what the price
to understand it. So it's up to the parents to tell them, in reality, no, that's not reasonable. I can make you some at home for like £1 or something, right? So I just couldn't believe it. And like you say, people buy it because people, they sell it at that price because people buy it. Yeah. And I just can't believe that people buy it. I seriously can't believe it.
And I think that, I mean, there is an effect. I mean, like the old saying, if you need to ask the price, you can't afford it. Yeah. There's a sense of, I shouldn't need to ask the price. I should be. If I see it and I want it, I should be able to afford it, and I will afford it.
Yeah, and that is kind of the modern world. But something this year that was interesting that's happened in our family is, I think it's the first year that I remember, is my wife is actually getting fairly negative towards presents. Now, it's been a little bit of perhaps a downward slope for a variety of reasons, but this year she actually comes out and says, next year I don't want to do presents at all, which is fine by me because I've never liked buying presents anyway. But for her to be this way, it sort of speaks back to my original idea, which is at least are some people at least perhaps resetting to what it actually means. Because I remember I'm not someone who enjoys the Christmas period. I actually get pretty negative during this period. I think partly because of the low light, because we're in the north, and partly because of the, the hollow festive veneer, let's call it. And so for me, the best Christmas I remember personally as an adult, and this is ignoring the, the looks on the joy on your child's face or anything. But for me, it was personally when I was living in Israel, and that's, and people will process that for a few moments. There's no lights, there's no gift giving, there's no anything, right? And so we just there was we went over to friends, like about 4 friends for a dinner that night, right? That was it. It was really nice. It was a beautiful, Christmas dinner. And that was it. There wasn't any like 2 months lead into Christmas, lights splashed everywhere. Ignore all of your carbon emission limits for that period and stuff like that.
Did you do any experimental run into? I know that there's a Christian quarter of Jerusalem, isn't there? Is there anywhere where you would have, or could they be Christian as in a few hundred years ago? Have they not got the stuff of the modern Western Christmas?
Yeah, no, I think there are Christians there, obviously, and there are various pilgrimages.
Yes, I'd imagine it's a popular destination.
Or there were, let's say, before the current.
Yes, sure. Yes. It hadn't occurred to me to think that they might be going cheap, which I'm very much a bargain spotter for tourism, but that might not be the right thing to do.
Yeah, and so I would be perfectly happy. I mean, as beautiful as the lights often look, it's for me the fact that they're linked to this very hollow expression of what could potentially be a very very significant, meaningful reconnection with your family. Period, right? So that really, I don't know, it just brings me down during this period all the time.
It must be very difficult to bring one's children out of that if they, once they've equated it with presents, whatever the most expensive thing I want, I can have it now. And I know of parents who struggle with the materialism of their children and whether they feel they've personally contributed much to it. But then you've got the whole peer group. It'd be quite hard. And I suppose is that an argument for sort of special closed religious sects? Basically the fact you can't give a child a different culture from the other people around you unless you really cut yourself off like some quite extreme group.
I think it's an argument for parents having a backbone, to be honest. So I think you're partially right. I mean, when I was raising our daughter through primary school, I was right from the beginning of primary school in the first year or two. I was actually surprised. I had not anticipated this, maybe because I grew up in the bush, I don't know, but I had not anticipated that how much of their self-worth they create so early on based on their, let's say, standing within their peer group, which is due to a lot of things. It's due to how well they do in school. It's due to how they see themselves, their own abilities, their own things they have, etc. So you can teach them to value important things about themselves, and then give them opportunities to develop those things that they're good at, and that will give them self-worth. I don't think you need necessarily materialist objects. Having said that, one thing I did realize, didn't want to necessarily, but I did realize it is as soon as she became 12, 13, that the mobile phone now, and you could think back to even when I was a kid, girls and their phones, right? This was always been a thing in the movies, everywhere. It's always been a thing. Girls and their phones, being on the phone all night long. And so it's not really a surprise that the phone has become such an important, the mobile phone, such an important aspect of their social lives. And I'm not even speaking of social media, because that's another issue, and that's can be potentially very damaging. Like, you have to prepare your child really well for social media, I think. But let's say using something like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger text groups, that is something, or even video chat, that's something that can allow them and does allow them to stay in contact with their social group. So their social group now is almost well, I don't want to say 24/7 because that means they don't sleep, but but you get the impression of what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
They have connection with their friends virtually all the time now. And so if you remove that, they almost instantly become ostracized from the group, or at the very least cut off from the group. And so that's a huge deal that I think a lot of parents from my generation don't fully appreciate, is that this is a fundamental aspect of their socializing now. And it was for girls, it was a big part of it anyway, back in the 70s, 80s, etc. But now for girls and boys, it's really, it's almost at the stage of Elon Musk implanting stuff in your head, right? Where you'll be able to just think and talk to people. It's basically that kind of extension of the social group. So that was something. But
and that was a huge leap from the days when, oh yes, I have to have, and the parent agreeing, the child has to have a phone in case they miss the school bus or,
exactly.
So like one phone call a month, and no, not 18 hours a day of phone activity.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, because we were initially, once she starts walking to school by herself, then you're like, okay, yeah, it's reasonable to have a cheap phone for contact and stuff. But then that evolves fairly quickly, especially once they enter the teens, 13, 14, especially 14, 15, 16. It is really, it's almost an essential extension of their, connection to the social network. If you think of the social there, and I don't mean like Facebook, Instagram, I mean like their personal social network of friends. If you imagine that as like a cloud, then this is their link to that cloud of friends and contacts.
Which raises the question then of, what do they talk about? I mean, how much time prehistorically, would we have spent actually talking? I mean, maybe singing, humming, just sitting, working together, but actually talking.
Yeah, this could be a sexist thing for us because we're both male. And in general, I don't know what most women spend so much time talking about. My wife, when she meets with her friends, she can talk with them for hours, but she has trouble talking or listening to me for 5 minutes. So you can judge whether you think about that from this podcast. But yeah, you're asking me. I don't know. A lot of gossip. There's a lot of gossip going on, at least among similar gendered friends.
What I've noticed just from odd snippets of people eavesdropping, as they used to on BBC, as people pass me, that and this is probably as much live, two people together as over the phone, but the drama involved. If you think how much EastEnders seem, compared to the reality, you think, well, this is, everything, everyone's got huge dramas of life and death going on. Well, seemingly every pair of early teens have got, are in the midst of some huge drama, or they need to see their world as being that dramatic.
Yeah, you wonder. Yeah, it's so tempting to say, well, that's because they see it on social media or on television. Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, which one is imitating the other? Yeah,
chicken and egg. Which one comes first? Do we have the soap operas being that melodramatic because that's how it is for some people in life, and they like that, or is it the other way around? Is that influenced life? Is art imitating life or life imitating art? And I don't know, but I know that I make a strong effort to avoid that type of thing. But both the women in my family, they love it. So, my wife comes home sometimes and even asks my daughter, "Oh, what's the gossip at your school?" It's like, so this is a thing. I don't know. It's probably is the female version of scoping out the social landscape, right? So men, I think, as the protector role, we tend to look at, I know for myself, like I'm paying attention to the war, I'm paying attention to supply chains, shortages, trying to gauge all of this stuff, preparing the household. Whereas my wife would be one who would be gauging the social landscape. And I think it's probably the two. I mean, the two are linked, right? They're both necessary. And so the women tend to gravitate towards more an understanding of the social landscape, and men towards the call it whatever you want. It's not economic.
It sounds as if there should be some kind of weekly digest of local gossip that produced by women for men. So in 2 minutes, men can click on and say, "Oh, it's so and so's left his wife," or this, that, and the other is going on. And
you need a because that would be interesting. But I think you need a translator translate it from female into male, because women, my experience from listening to this has suggested to me that they love the experiencing it with the person, right? Because they will speak in a way that generates the emotions, and as a male with no interest in that kind of thing, I cannot get involved in that emotion, right? And so when they'll try to describe it to me, I'm just like, okay, that's great. And then they'll describe it again because I haven't emotionally reacted properly, and I'm like, okay, I'm falling asleep now. I heard it the first time. It's not really that exciting to me, right? But so there you'd have to translate it from female into male. Maybe that'll be a discussion with some of the women in the group later when we start recording with them. But yeah, that would be interesting. That'd be funny. You'd condense about 3 hours of conversation into about half a page of point form bullets, notes, or something. But
I'm sure it can be done.
Yeah, maybe the AI can help us do that.
Yes,
that'll be where it is. But I think so. We will keep this one short. But so just to end on the topic we started with, then I'll phrase it this way: do you think there's hope for Christmas, in a broad scale, to return to a meaningful event, or do you think we're just going to continue the corporate cycling of this period? Maybe even expand it. Who knows? It seems to be January seems to have all the sales now as well, and November it's got sales.
I think maybe different people are going to follow different paths. There'll be stuff going on, and there could be a whole community that's very family-based or emotional, non-material in its Christmas, and against the same background of everything else. I mean, I'm thinking of just how people are Christmas, and mainly during COVID. Actually, I used to encounter people over Christmas more because complete strangers. Because I mean, yes, you pass people on the streets, but you don't expect, even at Christmas, a friendly nod from everyone who's just jostled you in the Christmas market and irritated you. But doing my 1 hour's, when I had a ration of 1 hour's walking, and I was determined to have at least that, so I was walking, which I didn't previously. So when I was walking around, and you would obviously occasionally pass someone coming the other way, usually walking a dog, and you would get a friend, a smile from some people, especially if, normally I would smile at their dog first, and the dog would talk to me, and they would, so it would be some kind of encounter. And then you get people who, even on Christmas Day, would walk straight past you without acknowledging, you're the only two people for 50 yards, and there's been no acknowledgement. You think, well, nothing is going to inculcate a sense of community spirit in some people.
Yeah, I suppose it's going to be one of those things that, like most of the rest of the society right now, it's going to be divided, isn't it? There's going to be one segment that sort of focuses on the family side of it and the more meaningful side, let's say, and the other side will enjoy the lights and glitter of it. Just to finish, then I'll steal the last word this time. I've actually been trying to use the AI chat GPT to compile the characteristics of multiple celebratory events of the period into one sort of festival expression. How am I describing it well? One festival of events kind of thing that might sort of unify a lot of things moving forward. I don't think I've got one that I particularly like yet, but if I do, I'll post it on the Substack blog and share it with everyone. So, but I think that's all we'll have time for today. So thank you again for listening. I'll offer you Merry Christmas on this episode.
Yes, I can echo that. Yes, Happy Christmas to all our listeners, plural, I hope.
Yeah, and any holidays if you're not Christian, and happy holidays for you as well. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share, like, and subscribe to Doublethink Dialogues, and check out our Substack. And we'll talk to you in the next episode.